Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a review on the TIKKA T3X rifle. As always, make sure your gun is clear, examine the chamber, pinky in the chamber, magazine is empty, bang. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started with some of the specs of it. This TIKKA T3X is chambered at 300 Winchester Magnum, so this one does come with the 24.4-inch barrel. Barrel is also blued, which is a very nice, matte, gloss blued, which is very nice touch. And also comes with a 70-degree bolt throw, which, as you can see here, allows for a lot more clearance with the scope, which is a big plus to me. The weight on this gun is a whopping 6.2 pounds, which is very light for a gun chambered in a 300 Win Mag, and I'll get on that later. Um, feeds from a 3-round single stack magazine, which just inserts like so. And I mean, I have not had a single issue with the magazine feeding and everything like that. So, another thing to note. Accuracy on this gun has been phenomenal. I've shot loads such as the Remington Core-Lokt 180 grain and Federal Premium 180 grain. Velocities are both really pretty much the same. I think they're around 2960, 2950, 10 feet per second difference between the two. However, both accuracies have done sub-inch groups at 100 yards. Probably my favorite though is going to be the Federal Premium with the nozzle partition, 180 grain. And it seems to me that the standard deviation on these is a little bit better because the groups are a tad bit tighter with this versus the Core-Lokt. So that's one thing to pay attention to. I've also got the 300 Win Mag 165 grain. I have not tested out yet, but I'm probably going to make a video on that because I'd really like to be able to shoot these fusions because that's one of my personal favorite hunting bullets for deer. But I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Another thing I was wanting to point out is the trigger on this rifle. The trigger on this rifle is phenomenal. So, you look here, no creep, clean break. On the gauge, mine breaks around 3.2 pounds. I haven't adjusted it or anything, and I have no reason to. It's perfect for what I need it. Another thing I tend to like about this is you also got a indicator here that shows your gun's cocked. But another nice thing, when you ever click it on safety, it locks the bolt. I am huge on this because I have had my bolt come open several times whenever I'm hunting or walking through the woods. It hits on a branch, throws around at the chamber, and especially with how slick this bolt is, it's bound to happen. That's a really nice touch. I had mentioned the gloss finish on this rifle because I tend to find these to be a lot more durable than the matte finishes. I have one of these on my Weatherby Vanguard. It's a 25-06. In the finish, I mean, granted, it'll rain or anything. It'll rain, snow, stuff like that. It does perfectly fine. You don't have any rust built up or anything. Versus the matte finish like the Ruger American or the Savage Axis, you'll tend to notice that you'll have a bunch of surface rust popping up on your gun if you don't wipe it after a day. Granted, it is matte. It's not as reflective, but I do prefer the gloss finishes on the guns. Another thing to note on the TIKKA is the scope ring and basis setup it has. So these have the tally rings. This is just a two-piece tally rings. I believe these are mediums. But one thing was kind of nice is that they have different screw hole patterns on these for different mounts. So if you want to run a full-length pick rail, or if you want to run two-piece bases, and it also has an area on the side for you to clamp on the mounts, which is very nice. It has a bunch of different options, and that's something I really like about it. Another thing to go on is the feeding. Feeding, like I mentioned, the 3-round magazine. Granted, it is a plastic magazine, but I have not had a single issue regarding feeding with the gun. Everything what I put on has been fine, whether it's ballistic tip ammunition, nozzle AccuBond, or even a nozzle partition. Everything feeds just fine in the gun. So moving on to some of the cons of the rifles, which there was really only one what I could point out. And granted, it does have a lot to do with the caliber that it's chambered in. I've had an M77 Ruger. I've shot a Remington 700 and 300 Winchester Magnum. they haven't really ticked like this, but I know it has a bunch to do with the lightweight gun and also a bunch to do with the stiffness of the recoil pad. I would like to see them put like maybe like one of the Kick Easy recoil pads or something like that on it, just something a little bit softer because the recoil pad on this one is, I mean, it's very hard. I'm not one to complain about recoil too much. I got a 338 Winchester Magnum and a Savage 110. That's got a little 20-inch barrel on it. And probably about recoil is the same. But, that's just one thing to point out if you're going to get a gun like this. And another thing, going off of that, is the barrel. I wish it was threaded. I'd love to be able to run a suppressor on here. Love to be able to put a brake on there if I wanted to, help some of that recoil. But, that's just something that's not offered on the standard T3X line. You get some of the rifles like the T3X Veil and they have the Ember. Those are like your more high end Tikkas. So they're going to have features like this, but I'd love to see some on like kind of your lower end Tikkas like this one. We're about $700 or so because you get some of the Ruger Americans, which you pay $500 for. They come already pre-threaded. Just be something I'd like to see. Uh, Going off of the cons, though, that's really all I have for it. I really had to think about it, and those are the only two that came to mind. That's just me kind of picking at it if you really think about it. Overall, for a gun that is a little over $700, granted, I bought this one a few years ago. I paid $510 for it out the door. It was a Black Friday sale, though. But I mean, overall, I don't think you will find a better gun in the low $700 price range than a Tikka. Everything about it, from slickness of action, the accuracy, the finish, the rigidity of the stock, it has a very rigid forend. I mean, everything about this, I mean, it's just a desirable features what you'd want on a higher end gun, but you have it on a kind of little bit more budget friendly gun, especially in something the $700 price point. I find this to be an excellent value. So, for those of who have watched and stayed to the end, I appreciate y'all watching, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more, and leave in the comments if you'd like to see anything else. Thank y'all.